evening. Just give me a second as I get all the things. It's very windy right now. Do one more thing. Okay. Good morning and good evening to everyone. So we will begin with the usual opening prayers. Oh, Mother, sentient beings, limitless as the sky, especially those enemies who hate me, obstructors who harm me, and those who create obstacles on my path to liberation and all-knowingness. May they experience happiness and be separated from suffering. I will quickly establish them in the state of the most perfect and precious Bodhi. All Mother, sentient beings, limitless as the sky, especially those enemies who hate me, obstructors who harm me, and those who create obstacles on my path to liberation and all-knowingness. May they experience happiness and be separated from suffering. I will quickly establish them in the state of the most perfect and precious Bodhi. Mother, sentient beings, limitless as the sky, especially those enemies who hate me, obstructors who harm me, and those who create obstacles on my path to liberation and all-knowingness. May they experience happiness and be separated from suffering. I will quickly establish them in the state of the most perfect and precious Bodhi. Thus, until I achieve Buddha, I engage in virtuous deeds Body, speech, and mind, I engage in until death. I engage in virtuous deeds with body, speech, and mind. From now until this time tomorrow, I engage in virtuous deeds with body, speech, and mind. In the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha, most excellent, I take refuge until Bodhi is reached by the aid of generosity and other perfections. May I attain Buddhahood for the sake of all wandering beings in the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha, most excellent. I take refuge until Bodhi is reached by the merit of generosity. Other perfections may I attain Buddhahood for the sake of all wandering beings in the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha, most excellent. I take refuge until Bodhi is reached by the merit of generosity. Other perfections may I attain Buddhahood for the sake of all wandering beings. May all mother sentient beings, limitless as the sky, have happiness, and the causes of happiness may they be liberated from suffering. The causes of suffering, may they never be separated from the happiness that is free from sorrow. May they rest in equanimity, free from the bias of attachment and aversion. May all mothers sentient beings, limitless as the sky, have happiness, and the causes of happiness may they be liberated from suffering, and the causes of suffering may they never be separated from the happiness that is free from sorrow. May they rest in equanimity, free from the bias of attachment and aversion. May all mother sentient beings, limitless as the sky, have happiness, and the causes of happiness may they be liberated from suffering, and the causes of suffering may they never be separated. Happiness that is free from sorrow, may they rest in equanimity, free from the bias of attachment and aversion. In all the worlds of the 10 directions reside Tathagatas of the 3 times before each of you, lions among humans. I prostrate joyfully with body, speech, and mind, and by the power of this aspiration to know Bodhis, all conquerors appear vividly in my mind. With as many bodies as there are atoms in all lands, I prostrate to all you conquerors. In each atom of Buddhas, numberless as atoms, all in the midst the heirs of the Buddhas. Thus I conceive of this Dharma Dhatu as completely filled with you conquerors in this way, with infinite oceans of praise and oceans of diverse melodies. I sing the excellent qualities of all you conquerors, and praise all of you gone to bliss with the best flowers and best garlands, best music, ointments, and excellent parasols, finest lamps, superior incense I offer to you, conquerors, with excellent garments and best fragrances, and sandalwood powder heap high as Mount Meru. All wondrous offerings perfectly arranged I offer to you, conquerors, these vast and unequal offerings to each and every one of you, conquerors, with the power of conviction and noble deeds. I prostrate and offer to all you conquerors all the armed deeds. done with my body, speech, and mind under the power of desire, hatred, and ignorance. I confess each and every one of them. I rejoice in all the meritorious deeds of all conquerors in the 10 directions and the errors of the Buddhas. Solitary realizers, hearers still in training and beyond, and all wandering beings, you who are lamps of the worlds of the 10 directions, who have unobstructedly attained Buddhahood through the stages of Bodhi. All you who are my protectors, please turn the unexhaled wheel of Dharma with palms together. I earnestly beseech you who may intend to manifest final nirvana, please remain for as many eons as there are atoms in the world, for the happiness and well-being of all wandering beings, whatever slight virtue that may have been gathered through prostrating, offering, confessing, rejoicing, requesting, and beseeching, I now dedicate to complete Bodhi. This ground sprinkled with scented waters and strewn with flowers, adorned with the supreme mountain and four continents, I visualize as a Buddha land and orphanage. May all wandering beings experience such a pure land. To the Gurus who possess the three kayas, I offer the outer, inner, secret, and vastness offerings with my body, wealth, and all phenomenal existence. Please grant the unsurpassed supreme attainment, whatever slight virtue I may have gathered through prostrating, offering, confessing, rejoicing, requesting, and beseeching. I now dedicate it all to complete Bodhi. Guru Deva Dakini Rana Mandala Pratija Swaha. Please turn the wheel of Dharma of the greater, lesser, and common vehicles in accordance with the dispositions and mental capacities of sentient beings. Doji Jama Dele Naro Dama Mita Bopa Doji Bungon Kade Sumi Zawela Mesha Sajela Mayiman Chogama Sola Deso Doji Jelo Kya Benito Mesa Megeta Pepo Sumi Maketo Megawa Doji Jamba Jile Gupesha Dojo Udato Sanki Kyola Mechi Jilo Jito Jito Megeta Jelo Imagine should have been就是三界观境，我问你，两千九百公司东西，把社会那边想到说，So I don't have my physical book with me. It's okay. I have my e-copy with me. Can someone remind me where we were last time? Antonio?
We were in, I think in verse 161.
Oh wait, I don't think I can hear. Antonio?
Yeah, I think that we were on verse 160.
160, okay.
Yeah, we finished that.
All right. Yeah, so, okay, good, thank you. So 159, 160, around there. So 159 it says, right? Now for others, you should spy on everything your body seems to have, steal it, take it away, and use it for the benefit of others. So this is still part of the exchanging self with other. So now, normally, right, we cherish our own body, our own good name, our own interest, our family, our friends, our. That's the operative word, right? Normally, we do everything else in service of this our. So here in this exchanging self with other, you take the position of now looking how what you can here it says steal and take it away from this hour in order to be benefit others. So this is part of that section we've already looked at. To remind myself, to remind you, we've already looked at the three categories of people, right? Those whom we, whether consciously or unconsciously, think I'm better than them. Then those whom we think, oh, I'm equal with them, and those whom we think, oh, they are better than me. Right, so we've covered those three sections. Now we're in the section where Shantideva, according to Khenpo Kumbel, is giving some final words about the importance, the necessity of training our minds, training our heart in this way of exchanging self and other, more generally now. But here, Khenpo Kumbel says he is using some gentle persuasion first, followed by a tough way. And so likewise, we should sometimes deal with our unruly minds, hearts, desires in a gentle way. But then there are other times, we also need to kind of be a little strict, be a little harsh even with the mind. Really, in the end, only when is what of these needed. And therein lies both the power of the practice and also the problem with our practice. Because this is a spiritual discipline, a spiritual tradition that says, you have to really take responsibility for your own well-being. And that's hard. Because when you're ill, especially if you could say And the illness is kind of like your mind playing tricks. You don't know, It's always not so easy to know. Should I now be gentle with it, or should I now be harsh with it? But there's no other way to do it except to understand that we have to take responsibility for this process. Now, where, depending on our karma, our circumstances, our conditions, some of us are more willing to rely on guides to listen to what they have to say when they are saying things to us. Some of us have more capacity to do that than others. And you need to figure out, if you can be a person like that. But either, it's not fixed. You can develop that. So, of course, in the traditional teachings.
Dr. Lai.
Yes.
Sorry, I missed a certain part. Just you mentioned about use gentle way, that section.
You can use gentle way or you can use harsh way. You have to use both ways. Basically, that's the gist. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
So anyway, in the traditional teachings, traditional to the culture in which these teachings were given, where people have a more natural, I think, appreciation of the notion of a guide, of someone outside that we are not defensive about, that we trust, and we're also not defensive, and we're not like, pretending to be good in front of them, but really we see them as, a doctor that we are honest with and we trust. And then, these guides can provide the check and balance. But even with these guides, right, the main work is still our own work. So we have to understand that. Main work is still our own work. That work becomes easier if we have the capacity to relate to reliable guides in the way I just described. Yeah, so with this regards, right? So uh, having reliable guides available to us, that's one side, right? And the other side is our capacity to rely on the guides. Right? So these two can grow. These two can grow, needs to be grown, needs to be nurtured. Because and it needs to grow and be nurtured because the other aspect of this problem is sometimes we hear so much about, oh, finding a guide is so wonderful, finding a guide is so wonderful, finding a teacher is so wonderful, but we don't understand what is the role of this guide, what is the role of the teacher. Then all our issues about, wanting someone to love us, wanting someone to be good to us, wanting someone that we can pet, like a dog, wanting someone to be obedient to us, wanting someone to make us feel good. I mean, we put all those things, onto this guide or these guides, then mess up the real purpose of this relationship. And so someone forwarded to me one meme, from like Facebook or Twitter or something like that, where someone said, most people go to therapy, not to get fixed, but to become a good patient. That most people, like their therapy, instead of actually becoming well, all they're learning in therapy is how to please the therapist, so that then in a way also then the therapist is saying all the things that soothe this person. Yes. And so each time you finish your session, you feel good, of course, but ultimately, no issues are resolved, right? You have just learned how to play a perfect role. Then, oh yeah, good. The same, like if we don't understand this relationship, we just think, oh, all I need is to be a good student. That's really even not the point. That's really not even the point.
Respecto a esto, pues el tener
Antonio, perdón, la clase en español no se está grabando, la traducción.
Gracias.
So anyway, coming back to the text, gentle way, gently persuading ourselves. So then again, taking the kind of like try to adopt the other person's perspective. So here, I indeed am happy, others sad. I'm high and mighty, others low. I'm helped while others are abandoned. So this is still this is standing on your side, recognizing. So here, last time I think I said, this is here saying, recognize, recognize your privilege, recognize the good fortune that you have. Then you stand on the other side and say, how come, I'm not jealous of myself? This is, and it's also a way of saying, like, hey, be content, be contented. Like look at the blessings you enjoy. Look at the good fortune you have, A lot of times we don't do that. We don't do that because, we're only focused on like, oh, me, I don't have enough, I don't have enough stuff. I don't have enough people. I don't have enough love. My pets don't like me. On and on and on and on, And it says, can you see, what other people are seeing about how wonderful what you have. Now, of course, that's not the whole picture. No, Shantideva is not saying, whatever other people see, that's the real picture. Shantideva is just persuading you to look at from deep, how to skillfully look at things from different perspectives in order to give you the tools to transform suffering into happiness. Transformation of suffering. Waiting, we cannot hear you. Unmute. So 161, happiness, fulfillment, these I give away. the pain of others, this I will embrace. Inquiring of myself repeatedly, I will thus investigate my faults. And so here, yeah, this is in a way, this is a way of talking about the practice of Donglen. Donglen, of course, I think many of you have heard of it, and primarily you're thinking of the technique, breathe in, all the pains and suffering of others. Oh, breathe out, give all your happiness, right? Shantideva doesn't go into that technique. He's talking about the mindset. He's talking about the attitude we should develop. So in developing this attitude, this mindset, of course, that technique could be helpful. But of course, again, we have to see, our capacity. Here is to have that, I think, in a way that is not going to bring up, too much chaos in your life. Is my personal opinion. There's not going to bring up the chaos in your life. What you can do is you intellectually, it's good, intellectually to say, this idea of taking, giving my happiness and fulfillment to others, taking the pain of others. Intellectually, it's good to develop clarity about why this is a good thing to do. Then, in actual kind of like to translate that intellectual understanding into an attitude, that one we have to go develop bit by bit, bit by bit. And as I said, don't like jump into like, oh, I'm gonna give away my happiness, and but rather, begin in the easiest and I think also most meaningful way, which is what is our capacity, to be inconvenienced by others. Develop that capacity, to be to have the greater and greater capacity to be inconvenienced by others, greater and greater capacity to work with, to be okay with when others are inconveniencing us, or we feel like others are inconveniencing us. What is our capacity to be disrespected? What is our capacity to be unappreciated? How not to remain unmoving when conditions to inconvenience us are present, but we don't move so easily. Conditions to make us feel unappreciated, we don't move so easily. Conditions to make us feel that we have been disrespected, we don't move so easily. If we can begin to develop that capacity and develop it within the understanding that this is how I'm going to slowly develop what Shantideva is talking about here, then I think it's helpful. There's a good place to sit. Also. So like this, these two lines here in 161, right? So this again, you know, we have to practice them skillfully. If we don't practice them skillfully, you see, ego clinging, ego grasping, you know, have two sets of symptoms. One set of symptoms will manifest as is because of ego clinging, you know, the obvious one. One way ego clinging manifests, the obvious one is, I am good, I am great, I am, you know, la, la, la. So when you practice, oh, I will give my happiness and fulfillment to others, you know, I'm going to make everybody happy, la, 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 all that, you know. That's one way, you know, the ego gets puffed up. Another set of symptoms for ego clinging is the opposite, which is, oh, I'm no good, nobody likes me, I'm so little, I'm so useless. That's also coming from ego grasping, you know. So we have to be on guard. Don't turn the Dharma. Don't turn the Dharma into poison. And so here, Shantideva says, you know, inquiring of myself repeatedly, I will thus investigate my faults. So here, I think, you know, again, he's also saying this, you know, he says, you know, you should always be alert on how your afflictive emotions can hide themselves, you know, and even when you're practicing Dharma, applying Dharma, it can go kind of the wrong way. Then particularly here, he's saying, they say, investigate my own faults, right? Again, this is not to put down yourself, but to see that which doesn't belong, which is the afflictive emotions. The afflictive emotions are not natural to us. That's the meaning of that which doesn't belong. So when we go about investigating our own faults, based on the understanding that these faults actually don't have a basis, but temporarily for a long time, nonetheless temporary. Temporary means they have no basis. But temporarily for a long time, we have habituated them. But we can remove them. So when we have understood these teachings about faults, the different types of faults, you don't use it, you know, as a like a flashlight, a torchlight, you know. Kempo Kumpel says, you know, you don't use it as a lamp, you know, to go search out other people's faults, but use it as a mirror to look at your own blemish. And then you can fix, oh here, yeah, you know, wipe. And, you know, that which doesn't belong can all be removed. And so again, you know, like, especially those of you who have the good fortune, it's actually a good fortune, but sometimes, you know, still there are some things we need to learn. When you have the good fortune to be connected to a local sangha, to a local dharma group, you know, sometimes what we do end up doing inadvertently is we inadvertently, right, we use the dharma like a torchlight, you know, going about investigating other people's faults. Oh, you should be like this, you should be like this, you should be like this, you know, and forget that, no, all these teachings are to be used as a mirror for us to look at ourselves. So then 162, right? When others are at fault, I'll take and turn the blame upon myself. And all my sins, all my misdeeds, however slight, declare and make known to many. I mean, normally we do the opposite. Yeah. So Shantideva is reminding us, you know, Dharma practice is to swim against the stream. Fundamentally, Dharma practice is to swim against the stream. But you know, we've gotten so used to, you know, especially in Tibetan Buddhist prayers, you know, sometimes prayers, sometimes exaggerations, I think. I'm sorry, but that's how I think, you know. Oh, may all obstacles disappear. Oh, right now, you know, oh, dharmatalas, you know, remove all obstacles, la 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 la. You know, may all good things be happening, rain falling at the right time, blah, blah, blah. That's good aspiration to make, but that's bad expectations to create. So 162, right? How we can practice this is, you know, again, let's start, right, at a level that we know will be helpful and develop this capacity. So maybe no need to start with, you know, literally going to like take on other people's sins, so to say, or even like you could say other people's wrongdoing, you know. You're like, oh, no, actually they did not cheat in their taxes, I cheated, so fine me, you know. No, don't do that, right? Or like, you know, oh, no, you know, he wasn't selling drugs, I was, you know, take me to jail, you know. But instead, you know, where we start is, if we perceive faults, which we do, to be honest, in others, try to not think of these others as other. Try to think, you know, this is the exchanging self for other. Try to think, oh, I'm that person now. That I'm that person now. And then, oh, and now first you put yourself in the other person's shoes, you develop some empathy, some compassion, and less judgment. That's good. So then that's that part. Second part to this exercise, to this training, is not only you develop empathy and compassion for the people, the persons that you see having these faults, and become less judgmental towards them, but then you also see, the next part is, oh, these are faults. These are faults that I have. How do I know I have them? Because I recognize them. Somewhere within me, they exist because I recognize them, you know. Like they say, it takes one to know one, you know. So when you see someone behaving in a very conniving way, you know, and you recognize that, you know, then they say, oh, this is street smart. But this street smartness, right, means you also have those things in you. It's just that maybe you're not using it, you know. And then you say, ah, yes, I can see that I have those things, you know. I got to do better and better to not use it when I'm desperate. Some of us use it, you know, left and right, up and down without any concern. But some of us, we hide it away. During real desperate time, we take it out, as a weapon. But even that, it's still there, that fault, right? Say, oh, need to lock it. It's more secure, so that I don't pull it out to use it. And so then all my wrongdoings, however slight, I declare and make them known to many. And this is the opposite of what we would do. And so Shantideva is telling us that we should take this way, swim against the stream, go against what normally happens. So in the ability to do that comes from real guts, real bravery. So this is sometimes why bodhisattvas are called warriors, They are not afraid. But it should not be, dumb bravery. It should be bravery based on understanding, The fame of others I will magnify, that it might thus outshine my own. When I see good in others, I will magnify so that it will look even better than my own. This is so completely opposite of what we normally do. This is the anti-Facebook, the anti-social media. This is to make others look good, Among them, I will be as one who serves my lowly labor for their benefit. So each time, like speaking of Facebook, which some of I'm there and quite active. So each time I post something, especially if something about where I am or what I'm doing, I remember there's one teaching in Kyoba Jitensen, he tells his students, he says, don't act in such a way where, you are always telling people, where you have gone, what you have done. Even in his time, which is so limited communication, he says, don't, fall in the habit of declaring to others, places you have gone, things you have done to benefit others. So each time, you're like, oh, better take that to heart, And so 164, this ego is by nature rife with faults. So ego grasping by nature is all just faults. But sometimes, accidental gifts might turn up. So in accidental gifts, are things like, if you are successful in your learning, you understand in the Dharma context, even. Oh, you have some understanding. Oh, your meditation, you have some good experience, He says you need to see those things as the accidental gifts of your ego clinging. So that when they do come up, you don't go declare to others, oh, look, it's working now, it's working now, They say you just hide it, so that they remain unknown. 165. All the harm, in short, that ego does to its advantage and to others' cost, may all of it descend upon itself to its own hurt and to others' benefit. So in fact, the self that we are giving up to exchange for other, in any case, is not our true self. It's the thief called ego grasping that you have allowed to live in your house. So that, that all its mischief, that's all its trickiness, may it destroy itself. Now, 166. So like that thief, that I said, if you invite it into your house, so arrogant, so overbearing. Stop it from doing that. And instead, like a newly wedded bride, let it be demure and blushing, timorous and shy. Because it's like a shy bride. You should have your ego trained to become like that. By the way, Shantideva is not saying that brides should be shy, okay? Shantideva is not teaching how brides should behave. Unfortunately, I think traditional Buddhist cultures probably have sometimes used this line. They say, hey, see, Shantideva says brides should be like this. You be a good wife. You should behave like this. No, Shantideva is just using what culturally his audience understood, how the culture behaved. He's giving an example. So please don't use this line to tell brides, oh, you should be shy, humble. Shantideva is not teaching us how brides should behave. Ryan say, the sun behind me is very bright. I say, no, it's not the sun. Those are my qualities. That's blinding all of you. So let's take a break now. We'll be back in a few minutes.
Om Wage Jware Mum Wage Jware Mum 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 Om Wage Jware Mum Wage Jware Om Wage Jware Mum Wage Jware Mum 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 Om Wage Jware Mum Wage Jware Mum
Okay, let's continue. So this next section is the harsh one, right? You need to be strong. So here it says 167. Do this. Be like that. Such things don't ever do. It is thus that you will bring it forcibly to heal. And if it oversteps the mark, well then, apply the lash. Like hit it. So, sometimes we really need to just say no. Firmly, no. Don't too much, I understand you, Sometimes we just have to say to our afflictive emotions, no. Sometimes, like when we are like under a lot of suffering, feeling miserable, feeling bad for ourselves. My own experience, it's helpful to kind of be able to say, no, stop. Try it, It might work. And so, O mind, if still you will refuse, though you have been lengthily advised, since every evil has its roots in you, you are indeed now ripe for punishment. Yeah. 169, the time when you could do me harm is in the past, and now is here no more. Now I see you. Where will you escape? I'll bring you down with all your haughty insolence. Let every thought of working for yourself be utterly rejected, cast aside. Now that you have been sold to others, stop your whining, be of service. So this is you saying, to your afflictive emotions that turn up, to your ego grasping, you now, I have reasoned with you. I have been nice to you. I have asked you to cooperate with me, and you refuse. Okay, now no more. No more Mr. Nice Guy. 'For if, through being inattentive, I do not deliver you to others, you will hand me over, it is certain, to the gods and janitors of hell.' And so it's saying to ego grasping, if out of lack of attentiveness, lack of mindfulness, I slip, I'm sure you will betray me. So now, I'm going to betray you. 172. For this is how so many times you have betrayed me, and how long I've suffered. Now my memory is full of rancor. I will crush your selfish schemes. Yeah, so this is the section where, it says you be tough, you be harsh, and this also can stir up some good energy. So you can use these lines. And the gentle one, I feel, has more kind of like ways of working. You think about it, you consider. This one is when, when particularly, you're so overwhelmed, and you say this out loud, these lines, you say, I will not, let you take over. See, the thing is that we think, we either think that the afflictive emotions are justified, like we say, well, I have a right to be angry. Yeah, you have a right to be angry, just like you have a right to cut yourself. But is it going to help? Seeing how it is not helpful, then we say, you stop. Or we think, oh, I cannot do anything. This is beyond me. This is too powerful. Both those positions can be kind of counteracted with these verses. Again, skillfully use them. They don't work all the time. So hence you need to know, when to say to your suffering, okay, I'll give you a massage and release all the tensions. And when you have to say, I'm going to whip you. Yes, Judy.
I think this is where it's important to have been working on the idea of having an observer mind, because I know I have been in the middle of so much stuff that I didn't even realize that I needed to do this.
Mhm.
If you can't get outside of the whole muck
Yes.
enough to see and look back,
Yes.
and you can stay lost and not
Yeah.
realize the need.
So
use
formal practice is important because of this.
Yeah.
We can intellectually all understand this and get this and appreciate this. And many people, especially in the West, very intelligent, they read this and oh yeah, But then if you don't have a regular practice of cultivating attentiveness, mindfulness, and then the purpose of attentiveness and mindfulness is precisely, yes, for the ability to see when the enemies have, entered the city.
Hello, Dr. Lai.
Yes.
Sorry, I missed the whole questions. Can you
Uh,
repeat it for me?
Yeah. It's not a question, but Judy made a
Comment.
and said that this is when she feels, where cultivating an observant mind, an attentive mind is important, because so often, right, we are caught up in the middle of so much stuff and suffering that we don't even realize what is going on, and by then we have already been dragged around, beaten up, and so then I said, yes, absolutely. That's why formal practice, especially when things are going quote unquote well, that is the time when we need to fortify our power of attentiveness, our power of mindfulness. When we talk about meditating on mindfulness, cultivating mindfulness, a lot of times people talk about, oh, it's for managing pain, for managing stress, for blah blah blah. That's good, but the Buddha didn't teach mindfulness for relaxation. The Buddha taught mindfulness for us to have the possibility of being freed from these afflictive emotions. Yeah, so 173. So it is that if I want contentment, I should never seek to please myself. And likewise, if I wish to guard myself, to protect myself, of others, I should always be the guard. So this is what so as the Dalai Lama says. This is intelligent selfishness. It says, we are suffering in samsara because we are foolishly selfish. Then, in order to look for the happiness that we want, we go about it in a completely wrong way. The Bodhisattva way is the only way, which is in seeking, ultimately, right, we are seeking happiness for ourselves. But we need to see, as Shantideva is pointing out, what the Buddha taught, like to really find that happiness, contentment, safety that we're looking for, it will only come if we think not in terms of self, but in terms of other. That other, right, includes yourself already, because you have transferred this self to other. So in a way, you could say it's not a practice of denying the self. Maybe in some other spiritual practice, we say you should practice self-denial. Oh, self-denial. No fun for myself, not that way necessarily, but to be able to see how myself is in everybody, and to derive satisfaction, contentment, and happiness from seeing how myself is in everybody. And so if I protect everybody, if I guard everybody, if I think in terms of the happiness of all, then I don't need to worry about this little I over here. Yes. So Shana, you have a question, comment. You have to unmute. You're still muted. You are still muted. Yeah, good now.
I guess we are talking mainly about the ego here, right? And, you know, which involves afflicted emotions or all those things.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so this is certainly not the only area I can have problems in terms of about me, but I find that being sick is one of the hardest things. And as I observed myself and my sickness previous times, I'm so grumpy. How can I be suffering like this?
Yes, yes.
I'm miserable, da, 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 da. And I would say, but other people are suffering too. They're sick, and that didn't do any good. So this is an area, I think it's almost a surrender when you're sick. It's like, it's surrendering to something too, just acceptance. And I think when you're sick, and there's pain involved and the body's afflicted,
Mm-hmm.
do you think, how do you deal with that the same way?
Yes. Yeah, so the body and its demands on us are very strong. So earlier chapters in Shantideva, he talks about that. So he talks about how, and the Buddha, of course, this is ultimately the Buddha teaching. We also, also need to develop a not identifying with this body so strongly.
Oh,
And that takes practice. Admittedly, when suffering of the body has already turned up, it's harder to say, I don't identify so much. So for those of you who are relatively still healthy, right, now is the time to begin to not identify so strongly with the body. Not me, not mine. As in, the body is just doing its thing. It is subject to change and suffering and pain, but it's the body. So the more we work on not me, not mine. So create some space, in other words, right? Don't identify so strongly. So even, so it's not all just bad news for those of us who already have all these body and all that, right? Even in the midst of it, we can say, this is not me, this is not mine. So just, and the acceptance that you're talking about, surrender that you're talking about. In the Buddhist way of surrendering, it's surrendering, not necessarily thinking of like, oh, there is a bigger purpose to this, there is a meaning to this, but rather surrendering as it is of the nature for the body to decay. It is the nature of the body to disintegrate. And now is the time that is disintegrating. And I will let it be, let it do, right? Then, of course, there's the very real physical pain. And when the real physical pain is actually occurring, right? I think like our ability to also say, well, this is what's going on. This is what's happening, right? To the degree you can take things, painkillers that can help, you do that. But also, it's important to like, not me, not mine. This is just the body doing its own thing.
Thank you.
Sometimes I think, my observation, sometimes I think spiritual or religious people have sometimes more burdens, and an example of how we don't know how to apply, right? The teachings that we have, and sometimes it can become more of a burden. Because I've seen, sometimes people who don't have a very strong religious or spiritual kind of, those types of conditioning, right? And when pain or bad things happen, they don't seem to need an explanation, they're like, this is just what happens, and they don't get so much suffering in a way. I have seen, they're just like, this is just what happens, they don't need like, why me? Why this? What is the meaning of this? So in a way, they can better kind of not identify, they say, well, this is just what happens. Like there are like 4 billion possibilities in terms of genetic disorders or mutations, as in there are 4 billion, of these genes, that could go wrong, and just one thing can go wrong and everything doesn't work the way we think they should work, and some people, just seeing that, recognizing that, and they say, well, it's actually quite amazing, like, that there is 4 billion minus 1 that has not gone wrong. Oh, wow, that's good, And when it's gone wrong, it's like, well, that's just what happens, And sometimes I kind of admire that, Of course, our traditional teachings say, oh, when you're having suffering, when things are going wrong, then you think, oh, this is the negative karma from the past ripening. Huh? That's on the personal level. If you have greater capacity, you say, oh, in the ripening of this negative karma, may other people's negative karma ripen upon me, doesn't need to have them suffer. If we have the skill and the power to use this kind of understanding, then great. But it doesn't always work, And then it becomes even more miserable. So that attitude that I talked about, like how some people who don't seem to ask these types of questions, why me? Why do I have to have this situation? What is the meaning? There, I think, is actually similar to the Buddha's more basic, fundamental, foundational teaching of how don't identify. Not me, not mine. This is just the nature of things. It's the nature of things to come together. It's the nature of things to fall apart. Nothing personal. That's the fundamental layer of the Buddha's teachings first. Upon that layer, we can build then that determination to become free ourselves. Then upon that layer, we can develop the great capacity, the more profound understanding that my happiness and the happiness of others cannot be separated. So layer upon layer. Yeah, so by the way, 4 billion is some random number. I don't mean it. It's literally 4 billion, meaning lots and lots, So there's so many possibilities of, just this body of something going wrong, It's actually a miracle that, for majority of us, it's not gone wrong. Anyway, back to this, Shantideva's one of the good news, earlier in the earlier chapters we saw, it's like, in a way you might want to say, okay, the bad news is, this body, up to a certain point, like you could say, like in your 20s, right? Starting from that point, it's only going in one direction. So if you want to label that as something, you could say, oh, that's negative, bad news. But then what to do, right? The bad news, nothing you can do about it except to believe all these people trying to sell you things to say how they can make this go the other direction, which is all nonsense, right? But we all know it's nonsense, but we still want to believe it. So we will spend money, we will buy things, to try to get the body to go in the direction it was going, when we were born up to about our 20s. So that's because emotionally, we still want to believe what we know is not true. But the mind can keep improving. The heart can keep improving. The longer we are alive, the more possibilities we can improve. See, that's the good news, The mind, the heart can keep improving to no end. Hi, hello, hola.
Hola, diles. Hola, maestro. Hola.
So may our hearts and minds, continue to grow and develop. Chanchu sem churin poche ma ke pa na ke gu e pa nyam pa ne pa ne mo de wa shu. So anyway, I think most of you know I'm in Guatemala. So it's been good. Things are well here. And in fact, when I was in the US, during the pandemic, I went to a few places. I was in New York City 3 times. I was recently also in Bay Area in San Francisco. In Bay Area in San Francisco, when I was there, I saw that, lots of people wear masks more than anywhere else, in the US. And maybe my part of my town, West Asheville, also. But here in Guatemala, like everybody is wearing a mask outside, not just inside, walking on the streets. Like everybody, people riding on motorcycles around, and they're all so feels pretty kind of safe here. Although the vaccination rate is a lot lower here for various reasons, but at least people are so feels good, feel safe. So everybody, take care of yourself. Omicron is spreads easily, but the slight good news is it doesn't seem to attack the lungs as with the other variants. So hope you don't catch it. If you don't catch it, if you catch it, don't go in panic mode. That just makes it worse, I suppose. But I saw somebody with a meme that says, Facebook, one of those Facebook things that says, if you don't have any friends who have COVID, it means you don't have any friends. I guess it has gotten to this point now. You take care of yourselves. And we will have class Saturday. Yeah. So, okay, ta-ta.
Muchas gracias.
Gracias, Dr. Lee. Gracias.
Gracias.
Antonio.
Thank you, Dr. Rai.
Dr. Lai.
Gracias, Antonio.
Bye-bye. Enjoy.
You.
Gracias.